Students, I'm interested in talking with you a little bit about the papers that you're producing or the arguments that you're producing in various medial forms for Tuesday. I'm going to review here how one goes about building a critique so that you can emulate the method as you're thinking through making your own papers. You remember that last time in class we talked about Sherry Turkle's book, Alone Together. How Turkle's position at MIT imbues this argument with the credibility of a scientific institution, even though much of the evidence she presents is anecdotal or otherwise sort of skewed. We talked about the ways in which, for example, her sample sets are all largely homogenous, groups of private school students in particular, in that second section called Always On. So what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about how we go about going more deeply into a text rather than just staying on the surface of the arguments. I also encourage you to think about your power to build an argument. You might be a little intimidated thinking about taking on someone like Sherry Turkle. Understand that this isn't a personal endeavor. You're not taking on Sherry Turkle, you're examining her ideas for their credibility, and you're applying standards of logic to assess whether or not they are persuasive. So first I would say that the lack of counter-argument in Alone Together, the fact that it sort of moves toward, it marshals evidence to support what looks like a preconceived notion, undercuts the persuasiveness of the argument. We talked about sections on pages like 134 through 141. We talked about page 189. And then we talked about various moments and things that was interesting about our class discussion about Alone Together was the ways in which we found some of the more alarmist claims interesting, if not entirely persuasive. You can take your paper in a couple of directions. One might be to examine the ways in which Turkle misses some opportunities to increase the persuasiveness of her argument. One opportunity, of course, would be to engage more robustly with counter-argument. The counter-argument would be what the cyborgology graduate students call digital dualism. They say of her, this is David Banks and Nathan Jurgensen, they say of Turkle's work that she posits attention as a zero-sum game, and that one is either on a device or attentive to the physical environment around us. And many of us think that this is too simplistic a way to construe how our attention flows and how our notions of self work, that they're not so divided between virtual and embodied, but that we're both all the time. That even if you're not actually engaging your device, for example, the fact that it could at any moment summon you or that you could go into it suggests that it's permanently in your consciousness. So if you were to engage in a counter-argument, you would probably want to take up that line of reasoning and examine some of the evidence where Turkle seems really to be construing the matter a little bit too starkly, a little bit too much about these two discrete environments, the virtual and the embodied. If you want to go in the other direction and think about the ways in which Turkle's work really ignited some interesting thinking for you, for example, some of the stuff we were talking about vis-a-vis children, vis-a-vis the robotic moment, and the ways in which we fill in the blanks when we empathize with machines, the collaborations between human and machine. Then you might wish to take some of the provocative moments in the text and write and really go deeply into why they worked for you. You might want to say, well, even if this doesn't have explanatory value that extends beyond this one local example, it nevertheless is an interesting thought experiment that I'm just going to go explore deeply this one idea, even if it doesn't explain the whole book or assess the whole book. So those are two kind of quick and easy ways to go more deeply into the assignment. Rather, the thing I really don't want, and the reason why I made this video, is that one of you sent me an email about the 5-paragraph essay. Should I just list examples? And I was like, well, no, actually, that's like a bullet point list, and that's valuable when we're trying to quickly take the measure of something. But the object of this assignment is a bit different. I'd like you to go deeply into it, examine the idea from a couple of different perspectives, and do your best to pivot around the idea and look at it from a couple of different angles, rather than just, giving us a laundry list of what's already there in the surface of the text. As always, I'm available to you. Please reach out to me via email, direct message on Twitter. We can confer in a Google Hangout or otherwise. I'm very invested in you doing well on this assignment. Please don't hesitate to reach out.